Hey guys, it's Graham. What's cracking? Let's talk about audiobooks. I did a little bit more reading of Shogun yesterday, made some more progress on that, and a few pre orders came in today. Well, one pre order and one that I didn't know was coming out on audio just yet. The Czech Monster Hunter anthology is out, Monster Hunter Phantom. It's about 18 hours long, so I'll be picking my way through that one, a story here, a story there. Today I started to listen to a Hoopla book. Hoopla is a app that the library uses. App. It was a Stephen Lawhead book that I tried about 5 years back, and I couldn't get into it. But that was during a summer where just a lot of things were going wrong in my personal life, and I thought, well, maybe it was just I was just having a bad year and I couldn't get into it. No, I got like an hour into the audio on this one. And I just thought this novel is like a beige conversation where I can listen to it, I can read it, but I can't track what's going on because I can't care about it. I've tried it two or three times and the premise sounds good, and then I get into it and I just think this is really overwritten and not in the way that's even consistent with ways that Lawhead has written other books. Like I just can't get into it. I was like, all right, well, maybe this one's just not for me. So it's called In the Region of the Summer Stars. It's the first in a trilogy called Irelandia. So it should be right up my alley, but apparently it's not, and I'm just going to not try to force myself through it anymore. So went ahead and returned to that one, and I started listening to the next Jack Reacher book, uh, which I'll have a review for probably tomorrow. But Shogun, you guys wanted to know about Shogun. I noticed something in the last couple of chapters. Um, who's the female lead? Her name is Toda Mariko, but I thought her name was Marikosa, and I mentioned that in one of the previous videos. No, that's got to do with how Japanese is spoken, and I haven't studied Japanese. Like there are little bits and pieces that I've picked up from the different books, whether fiction or non, that I've read over the last couple of years, but it's all extremely rudimentary stuff, like things that you would learn in the first 2 weeks of a Japanese 101 class in college. Just things that you can pick up from pattern recognition and stuff. Like when you're introducing yourself in Japanese, you just say your name and then you say des, which I'm assuming means I am. So it's like Graham Bradley des. I am Graham Bradley. I've also noticed that they don't have all of the same letters that we have, or at least they don't have all the same letter sounds. I don't know what that's got to do with the kanji or the anglicized version of their language. The kanji is the fancy symbols that mean different vocal sounds, and then there are anglicized versions of that where they write them out in English, and the way that it's written makes the sounds. They don't have all the same letter sounds in their language as foreign languages do, which I've had that similar experience with translating Spanish. There are certain letter sounds in English that just don't exist in the complete pure Castilian alphabet. But that's why you would say my name that way, Graham Bradley. It wouldn't hit the same way based on, at least from what I've observed, their syllable structure and stuff. It would be Graham Bradley, something to that effect. I've also seen people say Merry Christmas as Merry Kurisumasu because they don't have the exact same letter sounds. I don't know how to describe it better than that. If I were to sit down and properly study a Japanese English textbook, I probably would know it. But where am I going with all this? Why is this important? It's because occasionally there's like a suffix they add to not just necessarily a word, but a name when they're talking about a person, and that's san, S-A-N. And I don't know if it's just like when they're talking to someone or about someone, but when they're talking about, for example, this character Mariko, they say Mariko-san, but that's why my head was hearing it as Marikosa. No, it's not. It's just, in addition to that sounding like an offensive word in Spanish, it does also sound a little bit like mariposa, which is a word for butterfly. But no, that's just my dumb brain where it's like, oh, you are listening to a foreign language. So we select from the drop-down menu the only other foreign language you know and try to make sense of this in Spanish. Like, no, dumb brain. Like, this is not even from the same language tree. That's just where my head goes when it's hearing these things. But no, the character's name is Tora Mariko, and then when they're talking about her, it's Mariko-san. In the chapters that I've read, I think I'm up to 21 or 22 now. There's just more of the whole like intercourt politicking and stuff. People are trying to kind of like fight over control or allegiance to from Blackthorn because he's a reliable asset in the ongoing beef between the inter-Japanese powers and the outside world, the Portuguese and Spanish papacy and the Anglican Protestants, the Dutch Protestants. There's just a whole lot of intrigue on that front, and it's a not all that different evolution of the same things that have already been established. I would probably, again, be able to track that better, specifically with the names of the people involved, if I were reading this in print instead of reading the audiobook. But one particular scene, it was kind of a protracted exchange, I believe in chapter 20, had to do with Mariko explaining to Blackthorn the social mores of sex amongst the Japanese versus the Christian world. Because again, like not only are the Japanese like new to Catholicism, like they're new to any kind of Christianity in general. And for the most part, at least with the powers that be, with the daimyos and all that, their interest in it is only to the extent that it makes it easier for them to have diplomatic and commercial relations with the West. For example, like Mariko will explain that, yes, she is a Christian, but that comes second to her being Japanese and her being loyal to her daimyo and so on and so forth. And so, even though there are particular Christian attitudes towards intercourse, that doesn't necessarily transcend what is normal in Japan. And after a while being there, Blackthorn is he's agitated, he's frustrated about some things, not necessarily having to do with sex, but since Mariko is his escort, it's her job to make sure that he's comfortable, that his needs are met, and in the same way that she would worry about whether he got enough food or got enough sleep, she also asks if he has pillowed a woman, which is the verb that they use for it. She goes, I'm not sure if I'm saying this correctly, but have you had any pillowing lately? I can provide that for you if you need. And he's like, what? No, we don't do this, and at least not freely. And he goes on to explain monogamy and heterosexuality being kind of the pinnacles of Christian attitudes towards sex, and it's just completely alien to her. She's like, we don't worry about that so much here. If a man needs to pillow a woman, then a woman can be provided, unless you want a boy, and he gets really defensive about that. And as she's translating between him and the other locals, they're like, well, why is he getting so upset about this? And he's having a hard time explaining that, like, no, we don't do this. This isn't a matter of preference or anything. Like, sodomy is a great sin before God, and it also kind of flashes back, to earlier times in his childhood, where like not only does he have the Christian attitude towards homosexuality, he also kind of has a PTSD flashback to a time when he was 12 and a gang of boys like beat him up and almost snuggled him. And that's obviously a very powerful and negative memory. And like not only does he want to adhere to the Christian standards that he's sworn to, like he doesn't like that memory of it, and he hates that when he's at sea for months and years at a time, there are times when like he knows that other sailors are tempted into that because they're looking for release, as it were, but they're trying to remember their women that they're supposed to be faithful to back home, and blah blah blah. It was an intense discussion about a very heavy subject, but handled with the delicacy of this classic novel. It was just one other example of the massive cultural difference of these two characters. Blackthorn being a representative of Protestant England, and Mariko being a representative, what's the word that I'm freaking looking for here? A representative woman of 1600s Japan, like specifically the year 1600. I think this book takes place like in 1599, There are some other indications that it's building up to the year 1600 and some other significant historical events that happened. Something mentioned in the text made me think of that. But yeah, that was probably the most significant takeaway from the reading that I did over the last day or two. So I might pick at Shogun again later this week, but I got to finish that 7th Jack Reacher book that I'm on. It's called Persuader. It sounds like we're back in the first person for this one. It's not written third like the last couple have been. I'm enjoying those, and once I get that one read, I'll get a review up for it. But that's my update for where I'm at right now on Shogun. Y'all drive safe. See you out there.